You are the captain of the starship Voyager. The hum of the bridge is a familiar comfort. It is the sound of humanity's reach. The sound of 117 souls, all trusting you to bring them home. But home is now a distant concept, a pale blue memory many star charts away. Before you is the void, an uncharted, silent blackness. Then the silence breaks. A signal cuts through the emptiness. It is not a distress call. It is not a warning. It is something else entirely. An invitation. It resonates in your teeth. Your science officer, Dr. Lena Petrova, looks pale. She stares at her console, her mouth slightly open in disbelief. "Captain, this is impossible," she says. Her voice is a strained whisper. You walk over to her station. The signal is displayed on her screen. It is a thing of terrifying beauty, a perfect repeating wave of cosmic energy. It pulses with a crimson hue. "Where is it coming from?" you ask. Your own voice is steady. It has to be. You are the rock this crew is built on. Lena shakes her head. Nowhere and everywhere. She points a trembling finger at the chart. The signal's origin point doesn't exist. It's a patch of space our long-range scans show as empty. Utterly empty. According to our understanding of star science, this cannot happen. An impossible signal, beckoning from an impossible place. This is what you left Earth for. Not for the easy trade routes, not for the milk runs, for this, the grand and terrifying unknown. You look at the main view screen. The star fields stretch into infinity. Out there, something is calling. "Set a course, Commander," you say. Your tactical officer, Eva Rostova, turns in her chair. Her expression is a mask of professional calm, but her eyes betray a flicker of the same awe, the same fear. "Course set, Captain," she confirms. The Voyager turns. It leaves the mapped highways of space. It ventures into the great, silent blankness, toward a song only you can hear, a summons painted in crimson light. This is the start of your true voyage, a journey to the edge of all you know. You knew this mission required a special kind of person, not just a soldier or a scientist. You needed pioneers. You needed dreamers with a spine of steel. You handpicked every single one. Commander Eva Rostova was your first choice. Sharp, decisive. She could calculate weapon trajectories in her sleep. She was the shield of the Voyager. Then there was Dr. Eris Thorne, the galaxy's foremost xenolinguist. He was an old man with young eyes. He saw language in pulsar bursts. He found grammar in the orbits of moons. You would need his wisdom to understand the voice in the dark. Your chief engineer was Kenji Tanaka, a man of quiet genius. He knew the Voyager better than its designers. He treated the ship's energy core like a living thing. His calm was a force field in itself. He once held a ruptured plasma conduit together. He used his own hands and a roll of duct tape. That was a joke, of course. It was very advanced duct tape. And Dr. Lena Petrova, your brilliant star science officer. She viewed the universe as a beautiful, unsolved puzzle. The impossible signal did not scare her. It fascinated her. She was the compass that would guide you through a space that broke all the rules. You gathered them in the briefing room. The crimson signal pulsed on the main screen, a silent cosmic heartbeat. "We are going into the unknown," you told them. "Completely and utterly unknown. The rules we know might not apply." Kenji Tanaka nodded slowly. "The ship will hold, Captain." Eris Thorne smiled, a web of fine lines crinkling around his eyes. "And I will be ready to listen." Rostova simply said, "We will be ready for anything." You looked at their faces, at the trust they placed in you. This was your crew, forged from the best of your species, each one a master of their craft, each one essential. You were ready. Humanity was ready. The journey was a lesson in humility. Every law of physics you knew bent, then it shattered. The Voyager traveled for weeks, yet the chronometers barely registered a few days. Space folded in on itself. Distant quasars appeared close enough to touch, then vanished in an instant. Dr. Petrova worked without sleep. Her station became a shrine of frantic calculations. "It's like the universe is letting us cheat," she explained. Her voice was filled with a frantic energy. "We are not moving through space. Space is moving around us." She showed you the readings. The ship was in a current, a river of distorted reality. It flowed directly toward the signal's origin. This stream was not natural. It was constructed, an interstellar highway made of pure impossibility. Kenji kept the engine stable. He wrestled with forces his instruments could not even name. "The core is under stress I've never seen," he reported. "But it's also learning. The energy flow is adapting. It is becoming more efficient the longer we are in here. Your ship was being changed. It was being taught a new way to exist. You stood on the bridge. You watched nebulae of colors no human eye had ever seen." They streaked past the view screen. It was beautiful and deeply unsettling. A joke made its way through the mess hall. The universe's navigation system had finally updated. It was a beta version. This path was a message in itself. It told you that the beings who sent the signal were masters of reality. They could reshape the fabric of existence as easily as a child molds clay. This was a power beyond your comprehension. It was the power of gods or demons. The rift in star science was also a rift in your confidence. You were a captain sailing an uncharted ocean. Your maps were useless. Your compass was spinning wildly. All you could do was hold the rudder steady and trust the impossible current to carry you to your destination. The current slowed. The psychedelic light show outside faded. It was replaced by a solemn, chilling darkness. You had arrived. The system was a tomb, a graveyard of giants. All around the Voyager, silent ships drifted, the wrecks of 1,000 alien fleets from 100 different empires. They were a museum of cosmic tragedy. Some ships were organic, grown from coral and starlight. Their hulls were now gray and dead. Others were crystalline, beautiful shattered snowflakes of technology. One was a perfect sphere of obsidian. It was cracked down the middle like an egg. There were no signs of battle, no weapon scars, no radiation blooms. The ships were simply inert, as if their crews had vanished in a single, silent moment. The silence was the most terrifying part. It was a heavy blanket over everything, a silence that screamed of failure. Rostova's voice was low, scanning for life signs. Nothing. No power signatures, no active systems. They are all cold. Your crew stood at their stations in stunned awe. This was a warning, a testament to the power you were approaching. Whatever test this system held, all these others had failed it. Mighty empires with technologies far beyond your own. All of them now just silent monuments to hubris. Eris Thorne watched the ghostly fleet drift by. So many voices. He whispered, all of them now quiet. You felt a deep chill. Were you just another fool? Another captain leading his ship to the slaughter? Believing you were different. Believing you could succeed where all these had not. This graveyard was designed to inspire dread, to make you turn back. But turning back was not an option. Not for you. Not for humanity. You gave the order to move forward, slowly, carefully, through the cosmic boneyard, past the ghosts of fallen empires, toward the heart of the system, where the source of the signal and the silence waited. A new joke started. This place had a terrible rating on Space Yelp. 1 star. You cleared the debris field. And then you saw it. It did not reflect the light of the distant star. It consumed it. The obelisk was a void in space, a pillar of absolute crimson. It stood against the blackness like a wound in reality. Its sheer size was an insult to the mind. Your ship, the Voyager, was a speck of dust beside it, a single mote floating in the shadow of a mountain. The structure was a perfect monolith, 4 smooth sides rising to an unseen height. No markings, no windows, no sign of technology as you understood it. It simply was, an object of profound and terrible purpose. The crimson signal pulsed from its core, a steady, silent beat that you could feel in your bones. It was the source. All stop, you ordered. Your voice was barely audible. The Voyager floated in the obelisk's immense presence. Every sensor you had was directed at the structure. The readings that came back were nonsense. It has no mass. Lena Petrova said, her voice shaking, "According to our instruments, that thing doesn't exist. It's a projection, a ghost, but it's also blocking the star's light. It's a paradox, a physical impossibility sitting right in front of us." A wave of energy washed over your ship. It was not hostile. It was a scan, deep and intrusive. It felt like a cold insect crawling through your mind. Then it was gone. You knew with absolute certainty. The obelisk was aware of you. It was waiting. You stared at the impossible object, the final destination of your journey. The silent ships behind you were a stark reminder. This was not a monument to be admired. It was a challenge to be overcome, or a trap to be sprung. The silence from the obelisk was more intimidating than any threat. It was the silence of a judge. Your science teams worked with a feverish intensity. Dr. Thorne led the effort. His team focused on the wrecked ships. They hoped to find answers among the dead. They deployed remote drones, tiny mechanical spiders that crawled over the silent hulls. They searched for any surviving data. Most of the alien memory cores were wiped clean, erased by whatever force had silenced them. But a few held fragments, corrupted files and broken messages. Thorne's team worked to piece them together, to translate the ghosts. Finally, they found one, a nearly intact data log. It came from the great obsidian sphere. The ship cracked like an egg. Thorne's face was grim as he presented the findings. "We have a translation, Captain," he said. "It is a warning." He played the log. The voice was a series of melodic chimes, but the translation software rendered it in plain text. "Beware the monolith." The text scrolled. "It does not speak with words. It speaks with your own heart. It seeks not strength of arms. It seeks strength of spirit." The log detailed the final moments of the sphere ship's crew. They were a proud, warrior race. When the obelisk began its test, they responded with force. They fired their most powerful weapons. The energy beams vanished into the crimson surface. They had no effect. Then the log described the obelisk's response. It was not a counterattack. It was a reflection. The obelisk projected the crew's own aggression back at them, amplified 1,000 times. Their own hatred became a psychic fire. It consumed them from within. The log ended with a single, chilling phrase. "We were our own undoing." You stood with your command crew on the bridge. The translated message hung in the air. The warning was clear. Violence was not the answer here. Aggression was a guaranteed path to failure, just like the countless ships in the graveyard. This was a test of something other than power. Rostova's hand rested near her tactical console. So we do nothing? We just wait? Number, you said. We do not wait. We prepare. But not for a fight. You looked from Thorn to Petrova to Kenji. You saw the same understanding in their eyes. This was a different kind of war. A war of character. Suddenly, the bridge around you dissolved. The metal walls melted into a scene from your past. The hum of the Voyager was gone, replaced by the roar of flames and the screams of the dying. You were no longer on your ship. You were on the colony of Cygnus X-1, 7 years ago. It was your first command, a pirate raid. You had made a choice, a hard, tactical decision, to sacrifice a civilian transport to save the main colony. You had saved 10,000 lives, but you had condemned 200 to a fiery death. You could still see their faces in your nightmares, the faces of the people you had failed. Now they stood before you, not as memories, but as solid, accusing figures. A young girl with a doll, a man in a worker's uniform. Their eyes held no anger, only a deep, profound sorrow. Why? The little girl asked. Her voice was the creak of a closing door. Why did you leave us? Your heart hammered in your chest. Your carefully constructed calm shattered. This was the Obelisk's first trial. It had reached into your soul. It had pulled out your deepest regret. It was forcing you to live it again, not as a memory, but as a reality. Your tactical mind screamed at you. This is an illusion, a projection. But it felt so real. The heat of the fire on your skin, the smell of smoke in your lungs, the weight of their judgment in your soul. You could draw your sidearm. You could fight your way out. But you remembered the warning. We were our own undoing. Fighting this was fighting yourself. Aggression was failure. So you did the hardest thing you have ever done. You stood your ground. You met their sorrowful gazes, and you did not look away. I am sorry, you said. Your voice was hoarse. I made a choice, a terrible choice. I have to live with it every day. You did not make excuses. You did not justify your actions. You simply owned your failure. You accepted the weight of it. For a long moment, the figures stared at you. The fire roared. The screams echoed. Then, it all faded. The flames dissolved. The accusing figures vanished. You were back on the bridge of the Voyager. Your crew was staring at you. Concern etched on their faces. Captain? Rostova asked. Are you all right? You were somewhere else for a moment. You took a deep, shuddering breath. The illusion was gone, but the memory remained, raw and painful. You had faced your ghost, and you had not blinked. I'm fine, Commander, you said. You looked at the crimson obelisk on the view screen. It seemed to pulse with a new intensity. The first trial was over. You had passed. Dr. Thorne had found more data logs, buried deep in the memory banks of a crystalline ship. This race called themselves the Elder Ones. Their logs were not just warnings. They were philosophical treatises, records of a civilization that had lasted for millions of years. They were wise, they were patient, and they were all dead. Thorne brought the translation to you. His face was somber. They understood the test, Captain, he said. They knew it was not about force. They tried a different approach. The logs of the Elder Ones were fascinating. They described the obelisk as a filter, a guardian designed to test the maturity of a species. They recognized the folly of a direct assault. They knew the obelisk would turn their aggression against them. So they chose a path of calculated logic. They attempted to communicate with the obelisk, using complex mathematics and star science. They broadcasted theorems of peace. They proved, with flawless logic, their benign intent. They showed no aggression, no fear, only a calm, detached reasoning. They believed this was the key. For a time, it seemed to work. The obelisk remained silent. The elder ones thought they had passed the test. They prepared to receive the structure's knowledge, the great inheritance they had proven themselves worthy of. Then the obelisk gave its judgment. The log's final entry was chilling. Our logic was not enough. The translated text read, "The monolith saw our wisdom, but it did not see our heart. In our detachment, it found only a different kind of cold, a different kind of void. It judged us unworthy. It judged us incomplete." The log ended there. The crystalline ship and its wise, logical crew silenced. Just like the aggressive warriors in the obsidian sphere. Two different approaches, two identical failures. This was a crucial piece of the puzzle. The obelisk did not want aggression, but it also did not want cold, passionless logic. It wanted something else, something in between. You discussed the findings with your command team. "So what's left?" Rostova asked. "If fighting is wrong and thinking is wrong?" "Perhaps it's not about being wrong," Aris Thorne suggested. "Perhaps both approaches were simply incomplete. They were missing a variable." You stared at the great crimson monolith on the screen. It was a lock, and you were trying to find the key. The warriors had tried to break the door down. The thinkers had tried to pick the lock with cold precision. Both had failed. Humanity would have to find a third way. The next trial began without warning. It did not target you this time. It targeted your crew. It sought to break your greatest strength, your unity. On the bridge, Commander Rostova suddenly stiffened. Her eyes widened in alarm. "Captain! Multiple contacts. Dozens of them. They are powering weapons." You looked at the view screen. It was empty. The graveyard of ships was as silent as ever. "Commander, there's nothing there," you said calmly. "My console shows otherwise," she insisted. Her voice was tight with stress. "They are targeting us, requesting permission to raise shields and return fire." At the same time, in engineering, a klaxon began to blare. Kenji Tanaka's voice came over the comm. It was strained. "Captain, the core is going critical. I have a containment breach. I have to shut it down," Dr. Petrova yelled from her station. "Captain, the obelisk is emitting a new frequency. It's targeting brainwave patterns. It's an illusion. None of this is real." But her words were just noise to the others. Rostova saw an enemy fleet. Tanaka saw a catastrophic engine failure. The obelisk was showing them their deepest professional fears. It was using their own expertise against them, pitting their duties against each other, forcing them into a panic that would tear the crew apart. "Ava, listen to me. You said." Your voice was a calm anchor in the rising storm of panic. "There are no ships. It's the obelisk." "It's a trick." "I see them, Captain," she shot back. "My duty is to protect this ship. Kenji, the core is stable." You said over the comm, "Trust your instruments, not your fear. The readings are off the charts." He yelled back, "I have to act now." The bridge was a cacophony of panicked shouts, a symphony of manufactured fear. This was the second test, a test of unity, a test of trust. The other races, the aggressive ones, the logical ones, must have failed here. They must have turned on each other, consumed by their own tailored nightmares. You would not make that mistake. You did not shout. You did not give orders. You gave them your trust. Rostova, you said. Your voice cut through the noise. Ava, look at me. Not the screen. Look at me. She hesitated. Then her eyes met yours. You saw the conflict in them, the trained warrior versus the woman who trusted her captain. I trust you, Ava, you said simply. And I know you trust me. There is nothing out there. You turned to the comm. Kenji, you are the best engineer I have ever known. You know your engine. You know its sounds. You know its soul. Does it feel like it's going to fail? There was a pause. The klaxons in engineering still blared. But over the comm, you heard Kenji take a slow, deep breath. No, Captain, he said. His voice was shaky, but it was his own again. It does not. Then trust that feeling. You urged, trust yourself. This was humanity's unique answer. Not aggression, not cold logic. It was compassion, empathy, and absolute faith in one another. A trust that went deeper than instinct or training. It was a bond forged in shared experience. The Obelisk had never encountered this before. It had tested strength. It had tested intelligence. It had never tested faith. Slowly, the illusions faded. Rostova's tactical display went blank. The klaxons in engineering fell silent. The bridge was quiet again. Your crew looked at each other, shaken, but together. Their unity was not broken. It was stronger, forged anew in the fire of a shared trial. A low hum resonated through the ship, deeper than before. On the view screen, the crimson obelisk seemed to brighten. A section of its seamless face began to glow. A perfect circular doorway opened in the structure. It was an invitation. You had passed the second test. You had answered with a quality the obelisk had never seen. And now, it wanted you to come inside. You did not hesitate. You assembled a small away team. Thorn, Petrova, and Rostova would join you. Kenji would remain in command of the Voyager. He was the only one you trusted to keep her safe. The four of you boarded a shuttle. You guided it toward the glowing portal in the monolith's side. Flying into the obelisk was like flying into a sunset. The crimson light enveloped your small craft. There was no turbulence, no sense of transition. One moment you were in space. The next, you were somewhere else. Somewhere vast and strange. The shuttle settled on a smooth, glowing floor. You stepped out into the heart of the crimson monolith. The air was cool and still. The space around you was immense. It was a cathedral of memory. Crystalline structures rose around you like trees in a forest. Each one pulsed with a soft, internal light. As you drew closer to one of the crystals, images flooded your mind. You saw the birth of a species. Silicon-based life forms emerging from a methane sea. You witnessed their evolution, their first tools, their first cities of glittering glass, their first journey to the stars. You felt their joy, their wonder, their ambition. You moved to another crystal, another memory. This one showed a race of gas-based beings. They lived in the clouds of a giant planet. They communicated through symphonies of light and pressure. You saw their art, their philosophy, their deep connection to their world. Then you saw their end. You saw the silicon race consumed by a stellar flare. You saw the gas being's planet torn apart by a rogue black hole. Each crystal held the entire history of a civilization, a complete record of a species that had reached for the stars and failed. This was not a tomb. It was a library, a memorial to 1,000 extinct peoples. The obelisk had not just tested them. It had preserved them. It had saved their essence, their memories, their stories. It was a monument to cosmic failure, a museum of silent stars. Rostova was silent. Her usual tactical hardness was gone, replaced by a look of profound reverence. Petrova wept openly, tears streaming down her face as she witnessed the rise and fall of galaxies. Aris Thorn simply stood, his eyes closed. He was absorbing the sheer, overwhelming weight of it all. So much life, he whispered. So much loss. You realized the truth of the obelisk. It was a guardian against cosmic loneliness. It preserved the stories of those who failed the test, so that they would not be forgotten. It was a burden of unimaginable weight, carried by an ancient and lonely intelligence. An intelligence you were about to meet. A light detached itself from the ceiling. It drifted down toward you. It was a sphere of pure, white energy. It pulsed with an ancient power. It had no face, no voice, but you could feel its consciousness. A mind as old as the stars, vast, powerful, and filled with an infinite sadness. The guardian had appeared. The being of energy hovered before you. It did not speak in words. It spoke directly to your mind. Its thoughts were not a voice, but a wave of pure meaning. It washed over you, cold and ancient. You are human. The thought was not a question. It was a statement of fact. Your species is young, impulsive, prone to emotion, yet you passed the trials. You answered aggression with acceptance. You answered fear with unity. These are novel responses. You felt the Guardian's immense curiosity. It had witnessed the rise and fall of 1,000 species. It had seen empires of warriors, federations of thinkers. It had never seen a species like yours. A species that held compassion as a strength. A species that used empathy as a weapon against fear. We have watched you for some time. The Guardian's thoughts continued. Your world is a cacophony of contradiction. You create great art and commit great atrocities. You reach for the stars with one hand, while you threaten your own cradle with the other. You are a paradox. You stood your ground before the immense being. You did not feel fear. You felt a strange sense of kinship. You were both lonely in your own way. You, a captain far from home. The Guardian, a timeless keeper of dead memories. The test is not over, the Guardian declared. Its energy field brightened. The trials of character were a prelude. Now comes the final judgment. The question of sacrifice. The measure of a species' worth. The chamber around you seemed to hold its breath. The light from the memory crystals dimmed. It was just you, your team, and the being of pure energy. The final test was at hand, a question that would decide the fate of humanity. You must choose. The Guardian's thought echoed in your soul. The Guardian presented the choice. It was not a riddle. It was a clear, terrible equation. An impossible choice with no right answer. Two options appeared in your mind, visualized with perfect clarity. In the first vision, you saw your ship, the Voyager. You saw your crew, 117 men and women. They were working at their stations, laughing in the mess hall, looking toward home. The Guardian's thought was clear. Sacrifice your ship and your crew. Let them be preserved here. Their memories will join the library of the lost. In exchange, the knowledge of this obelisk will be sent to your world. Your Earth will leap forward 10,000 years in technology, in understanding. Your species will be saved, but you and everyone you command will die. Then the second vision appeared. You saw Earth, the familiar blue and white marble spinning in space. You saw its cities, its people, its beauty and its chaos. Refuse the first option. The Guardian's thought instructed. And this is the price. The knowledge of the obelisk will be locked away forever. Your species will be left to its own devices, to face the great filter on its own. It will likely fail. It will likely destroy itself. But you and your crew will be allowed to leave. You may return home. It was a choice between the present and the future, between the few and the many. A cosmic trolley problem designed to break you. Sacrifice your family for your species, or save your family and condemn your species. Rostova looked at you. Her face was pale but determined. Captain, we are prepared to do our duty. Thorn and Petrova nodded in agreement. They were ready to sacrifice themselves for the greater good of humanity. This was the logical, noble choice, the choice a hero would make. But you looked at the Guardian. You looked at the library of 1,000 dead civilizations, and you saw the flaw in the test. The warriors had failed. The thinkers had failed. What if the heroes failed too? What if the willingness to sacrifice your own was just another form of failure? A noble one, perhaps, but a failure nonetheless. All the other species must have faced this choice. The warriors likely refused to sacrifice their power. The thinkers likely chose the logical path of sacrificing the few for the many. Both were now just memories in a crystal. There had to be another way, a human way. This was the moment, the culmination of your journey. You were not a warrior. You were not just a thinker. You were a human. And humanity had never been good at accepting binary choices. It was time for a little audacity. You looked at the Guardian. You pushed a thought back at it. Not with its power, but with your own conviction. I reject the choice. The Guardian's energy field flickered. A wave of pure surprise washed over you. That is not an option. It responded. You must choose. Number, you thought back. Your mind was clear and steady. Your test is flawed. You offer a choice between sacrifice and selfishness. But you miss the most important variable. You miss the one thing that makes us who we are. You stepped forward, toward the sphere of light. You don't want to test us. Not really. You want to understand us. You are lonely. You are the keeper of 1,000 tragedies. You are looking for a species that can break the cycle. The Guardian was silent. Its light pulsed slowly. It was listening. Sacrificing my crew is unacceptable, you declared. Their lives have value, not just as memories, but as living, breathing people. And abandoning my species to its fate is also unacceptable. That is not leadership. That is cowardice. This was your gambit, a move of pure, unfiltered audacity. So I offer you a third option, a new variable. Do not judge us. Join us. The proposal hung in the vast chamber. It was insane, preposterous. A mortal creature inviting a god to step down from its throne. You have memories. You continued, pressing your advantage. But you have not lived in millions of years. You watch, you test, you record, but you do not participate. You have forgotten what it feels like to strive, to hope, to fail, and to get back up again. What are you proposing? The Guardian's thought was laced with a deep, profound confusion. The knowledge of the obelisk is a burden. You said. It's too much for any one species to handle at once. Don't give it to us as a gift. Give it to us as a partner. Teach us. Guide us. And in return, we will teach you. We will remind you what it means to be alive. Let us be your memory for the future. Not just another entry in your library of the past. You challenge the timeless, cosmic being, not with weapons or with logic, but with an invitation to stop being a judge and start being a part of the universe again. to learn from humanity, its chaos, its contradictions, its unbreakable hope. It was the most human thing you could possibly do. The Guardian's light flared, a brilliant, blinding white that filled the chamber. It was considering your gambit, weighing an option that had never been presented before. The silence stretched for an eternity. The fate of your species hung on the audacity of your challenge. Then, the light softened. The intense pressure in your mind receded. A new thought entered your mind from the Guardian. It was a feeling you did not expect. It was a feeling of relief. Your audacity is illogical. The Guardian's thought was no longer cold. It held a hint of warmth, a trace of wonder. It is inefficient. It is reckless. It is precisely what we have been waiting for. The great test was not about sacrifice. It was about refusing to sacrifice. It was about finding a way to save both the crew and the species. To reject the impossible choice, and to create a new one. This was the unique quality humanity brought to the cosmos. The stubborn, illogical refusal to accept a no-win scenario. "We accept your proposal," the Guardian stated. "We will be your partner. We will be your guide." The crystalline trees of the memory library began to glow with a fierce new light. The knowledge they held was not just for humanity. It was for the Guardian too. A path for it to reconnect with the universe. The obelisk was no longer a filter. It was a bridge between the ancient and the young, between the keeper of memories and the makers of the future. The crimson obelisk transmitted its secrets, not as a single data burst, but as a steady stream of guidance, a partnership that would last for generations. Your ship, the Voyager, became the first emissary, the link between Earth and its new, ancient mentor. You had not just found a treasure trove of knowledge, you had gained an ally of unimaginable power and wisdom, an ally that humanity, in its turbulent youth, desperately needed. And you had given that ancient, lonely Guardian something in return, a renewed sense of purpose, a reason to look forward, not just back. You returned to the Voyager's bridge. The journey home would be different. You were no longer just explorers. You were ambassadors, the custodians of a new dawn for humankind. You looked at your crew, at Rostova, Tanaka, Petrova, and Thorne. You had faced the ultimate test together, and you had answered not with force or logic, but with the very essence of your humanity. The Voyager turned for home. It left the graveyard of empires behind. But this time, the silence was not one of failure. It was one of peaceful, patient waiting. The stories of the lost would not be forgotten, and humanity's story was just beginning. You had voyaged to the Crimson Obelisk as a captain of a single ship. You were returning as the herald of a new age, an age of unlocked inheritance, an age of partnership with the stars,